What's up, everybody? Walking home and thought I'd take the opportunity to make a quick video. Not at the lake, so it's not going to be as picturesque, but just want to take advantage of the chance that I have to make this quick video. I'm trying to upload more frequently on this channel for those of you that are navigating kratom addiction and recovery, and so this video I'm going to be talking more about how I quit kratom. In my last video I just read a post that I had made on Reddit about the specifics that I did when I quit, and so I wanted to take the chance to speak a little bit more candidly, and I think that maybe when I was reading it could have been a little bit more dry, and so I wanted to just take the chance to speak a little bit more freely about everything. So in the end of my addiction, especially the last year, things got really bad, and I was dealing with a lot of grief from the loss of some close family members, and I had gotten caught up in the many years before, about a decade before, of these different beliefs that I come from, like a hippie background. If you watch any of my other videos, you might have heard me talk about how I grew up, where I left home at a young age when I was 16 to travel the country and follow the rest of the members of the Grateful Dead and fish. So I had gotten caught up in like all this hippie stuff over the years, and that really translated into the stuff that I believed in. And my kratom addiction was pretty much like the culmination of a long time being in these beliefs, spiritual beliefs in particular, if I didn't specify that. And so I had left the food industry and was working with weed and was studying herbalism. And that's what led into me even finding kratom, was that while studying herbalism, I had come across it in my studies. And I was, like I said, grieving super hard. And being in these beliefs, I really, like, I was like worshiping nature, basically. And I plan on making more videos in the future about different stuff with that, but just, basically to explain where I was at when I got on kratom. I was like, basically into like nature worship and like what's called pantheism, where I believed that God was in everything, and I ultimately was like worshiping myself, because I believed that God was in every human being and in every plant and in every animal. And so this led me, when I was mixing that with a substance like kratom, I found myself in a really bad place, because everything that I had believed, it was not conducive to me, I was finding power in myself, basically, when I was believing these things. And it worked for a while. It really did. And but when I found myself in the depths of this addiction, I wasn't enough to get myself out of it. And I want to just throw out a trigger warning right now that I'm going to be talking about faith. I'm going to be talking about God. I'm going to be talking about Jesus. So if that's not something that you're comfortable with, I'm just letting you know that that's what I'm going to be discussing partly with this video. So I find myself in this really dark place. Like the last year of my addiction, I was basically not functioning, and I had gotten really caught up in just being a slave to this plant. And as you've seen in my other videos too, like I explain like the depths of that, where like because of the amount that I was taking and how my dosages kept increasing, I was not able to go longer than like 3 to 4 hours without dosing. And as I explained before, like the more I took, the worse it got. And I understand that all of this was my doing. I understand that I wasn't taking it responsibly. But the more that I took, the worse that the anxiety and panic attacks and depression became. So it was a coping mechanism to take more and more, to try to really find any sort of like a small amount of peace. Because what starts off with euphoria and like, you know, feeling like all is right with the world and you're at complete peace and like you can do anything and like be happy when you're on Kratom. Like I remember just like sitting and watching YouTube videos. I'm not even like exaggerating, but I could like sit and watch YouTube videos for like, you know, hours at a time, and like the dumbest videos too. And then I got like all into, when I was like in the depths of my addiction, like I started getting into like conspiracy theories and stuff. So I'm like watching all this stuff about like 9/11 and like secret societies and like all this stuff. And so I'm just like, everything, you know, I was spending all of this time, and like what started off as like feeling like everything was right with the world when I was taking Kratom, it just, as the time went on and as my dosage increased, it became like worse and worse with the anxiety, the depression, the panic attacks. And so at the end, like I wasn't functioning, and there was nowhere else I could turn. I had studied herbalism before my addiction really basically like made me not be able to function anymore. I had left my food career, and I was in these beliefs that I'm like looking to for answers, and I'm looking to, like, you know, if I think that I am, you know, literally like there's like the divine in me and in every human being, and basically I am God, that I'm like looking to myself for these answers, and I just didn't have it. I didn't have the strength to get out of the hole that I had dug for myself. The grief that I was running from, which was a big reason why I even started taking Kratom, it was basically like put off, or like, you know, grief is a process and it's not linear. And I wasn't able to go through that process when I was in my Kratom use. So it was there all the time, and like I hadn't dealt with it. So all of this stuff is compiling, and I had dug such a deep, dark hole for myself. I wasn't leaving the house. I was talking about in some of the other videos, like the health effects that I had gone through because of, the damage that this stuff had done to my body. And keep in mind too, I wasn't taking like 2-gram doses. I was taking 8 to 15-gram doses, like multiple times a day. So at the very worst, I was up to about 40 to 60 grams a day. And it really sucked because after a certain point, like, I didn't even feel good anymore. Like, meaning like there was absolutely no euphoria, which was like part of the reason why I took it to begin with, because it alleviated my sadness. There was none of that. Instead, the higher that I went in doses, the more rage, the more like sheer terror, panic would completely take over. And so it was really terrible at the end. And I was in this place. I'm gonna try to catch this crosswalk. So I'm gonna hold off 1 second while I cross this street, and then I will keep talking. Okay, cool. So yeah, like at the end, I was just a complete mess. Something about it too, I don't know what it is, that I'm already a pretty like, creative, like sensitive sort of gal. And something about the Kratom, it like heightened my sensitivity to everything, like light, sound, smell, like the temperature. And so it was just not good at the end, man. And I had nowhere to turn. I had, basically nobody in my life at this point. My husband was working like beyond full time, like overtime. And I pushed away all my family, all my friends, all these beliefs that I was into. They were not like helping anything. And they were making things worse, really. And so that's when I really hit the darkest moment of my life. And I can't say that I was suicidal because I never wanted to die, and I never wanted to like, affect the people that love me that way. But I didn't want to live anymore. And I was just in my darkest moment. And I was watching something from a lady whose videos I used to be into when I was all in these like weird beliefs. And she had had a come to Christ moment and like completely renounced all these beliefs that she was into. And at first I was like, whatever, these Christians, they're so close-minded. They don't know who God is. Like, they don't know what anything is about. And, I never had any problems with Jesus. And I always had this like connection since I was young with Jesus. So I never was like, screw Jesus or whatever. I was never like that, but I just could not be down with the whole like, Jesus is the only way to heaven sort of thing. And I live in an area that's super diverse. It's known as the most diverse per capita place in the US. And so for me, it was really hard to like say, okay, Jesus is the only way, and everything that everybody else believes is not. And I've never been into the whole like, being pushy about beliefs and I spent a long time not being, you know, a believer in Christ, and I would have people come up to me on the street and, you know, do the whole like, if you died tomorrow, where would you go stuff, and like the whole fear-based mentality of that approach was a big turnoff to me. And I also am not down with like organized religion, and so that was something too that was like not gonna work for me. And so yeah, so I was in this place of being in my darkest moment, and I was watching a video, even though this lady's videos that I used to watch when I was in those old beliefs, she had like went to like became a Christian. That's the word that I'm looking for. I still watched her videos, and on one of the ones that I watched, like when I was in my darkest moment, somebody was telling their testimony, like sharing their story about how they had grown up with abuse and trauma, which was also part of what I was dealing with too. I didn't mention that when I was talking about like the whole grieving thing. I was grieving close family members that I had lost, but I also had a lot of undealt with stuff from my childhood that I had never dealt with. I grew up with a really abusive mom, and there was a lot of things that I just hadn't dealt with. So I'm watching this testimony, and somebody's sharing how they had come from also abuse and trauma, and how they had gotten themselves into addictions. And it's just at that moment, man, like there was nowhere else I could turn. And there were little things that were like creeping into my awareness, like leading up to this, about like, you know, Jesus, like Jesus. I remember Jesus from my childhood. I remember, you know, when I was growing up with that, with the abuse and the neglect and the trauma and so many other aspects of being a child in a household like that like I always had this connection with God. I always had a knowing and a connection with Jesus, and I first prayed to him on my own, like not, you know, because of church or whatever, but like I first prayed to Jesus when I was a child, and like so I had known him. And in my darkest moment, in my Kratom addiction, when I knew that I couldn't get out of it on my own, I literally just cried out. I cried out to Jesus, and it was in that moment that like I felt this peace that I had not felt in so long. Like not peace from like Kratom or a drug, not peace from like, you know, any of these beliefs that I had gotten into. And I knew that like there was something about it that I had to figure out and I had to understand. And so in the time that followed after that, you know, mind you, I'm in the depths of this addiction still. And you know, believe me, it was not an immediate thing. It was not like, you know, all of a sudden it's just like, you know, oh, I'm done. Like it was definitely a process. And so in the time that followed, I just like, when I had first cried out, I was like, you know, show me, like, God, if you're real, like, show me the truth. And that was like what my cry was. And so over the time that followed, I learned about what the gospel was and like who Jesus was. And if you don't know what the gospel is, what it means is that, like, all of us are human. All of us have flaws and have made mistakes. And God is perfect and holy. And like, if you don't believe in like even God at all, like, I respect whatever anybody's beliefs are, but for me, like God, like the existence of God is undeniable. Like when I told you I got into like worshiping nature and stuff, like, like when you see in the natural world these it's like there's a design, there's an intricacy to like creation, to the natural world that is like literally like it's just it's impossible to think that there isn't an intelligent like force behind all of this. Like one of the things that I really got into was like they consider it sacred geometry, and it's basically like there's like a literal geometric formulation to different things in nature, like spiral shells, like the galaxy, like embryos of like humans, of like human like when we're formed in the womb, there's like literally like it like follows this like pattern. And so I gotten into all that kind of stuff when I was like in these other beliefs. And so like the existence and like the presence of like a divine intelligent like creator basically was like completely undeniable. And so, sorry, I segued a little bit with that, just like describing about God, but like, God and our creator is holy and is pure and is perfect. And because we're human and we've all made mistakes and we all have, flaws and things about us, nobody is perfect. That in its pure nature is what separates us from God. And so, like back in the day, and not even just in like, in like Christian faith, but in many different religions and cultures, excuse me, around the world, there would need to be atonement rituals done before even approaching God. So a lot of times it would involve like sacrifices of animals or like different cleansing rituals to be able to even approach God. And so what the gospel is that, God loves us so much that, and he doesn't want to be separated from us, that he sent the perfect sacrifice, and that is Jesus. And in Jesus's work on the cross and him dying, he is the atonement for these mistakes that we've all made. And in that, in him being that ultimate sacrifice for all of us, it brings us back into right relationship with God. And through belief in him and belief in Jesus, we are able to be in right standing with God if we want. Like, we all have free will. We're all given a choice about if we want to accept this gift, basically, of relationship with God. And why this applies so much to me getting off of Kratom is because when I was in the depths of my addiction, like I was like literally like dead in this addiction. Like my soul, my spirit had literally like died in this addiction. And I mean, I looked like the Walking Dead too. I was like, you know, skin and bones, and like had no color in my face. And so what's beautiful about the gospel too, and like how it applies to our lives personally, is that, you know, Jesus, when he was sacrificed, he died, and then on the third day he rose again. And by our belief in him, we also are raised from the dead. And so I experienced firsthand being brought back to life, not only from my addictions, but like the other, you know, stuff that I had been caught up in belief-wise, and from my grief, and from my suffering, and from, you know, my childhood. And it was amazing, and I experienced it firsthand, and there was no way I could get out of where I was without this. And I didn't go to church. I just found a cool church like a couple months ago, but I spent these, you know, almost 3 years just completely on my own, like completely just like seeking God and like reading the Bible for the first time in my life, and, you know, like letting go of everything that I had been a part of before, and turning away from all the beliefs that I had had. And it was amazing. And I know a lot of you out there may not want to hear this, and I always say it's similar with Kratom stuff, that like, you know, we're all different. Everybody's lives are different. Every person is different. And I was a person who really shied away from the idea of like Christians, and like I said, I've always been, you know, I've always loved Jesus, but I didn't like, you know, it wasn't like on this sort of level. I didn't see him as like my savior. I didn't see him as, you know, I saw him in like a mix with like other gods and deities that I was into. So I understand if this isn't your thing, and I respect it. And but it's like I've said in a lot of other videos, my last one too, it's integral to me getting off and staying off of Kratom. And I had no help, no support. I didn't know about the Quitting Kratom subreddit until like well after I quit, and I literally went through like my whole tapering and quitting process completely on my own, and just like with God was carrying me through it all. And so yeah, it was huge for me. And if this isn't what you wanted to hear with this video, I completely get it. And I think I'm gonna keep this like how I quit Kratom videos, like I'm gonna just keep it a series where like this is part 2, and I'm gonna just, you know, keep sharing about things and going into specifics and more details as I go through making more of these videos. And, you know, keep in mind, for everybody, it's different with the quitting process. Like for me, I did a long taper over the course of a year. But for some people, like the discipline and the, you know, how it kind of just like prolongs the whole withdrawal thing. For some people, it's easier just to cold turkey. And I've heard of people cold turkeying, you know, at really high amounts, and just, you know, sweating it out for, you know, a week or sometimes a little bit longer, but then they're free, you know, that without having to like prolong it into the amount of time that tapering is. So for everyone it's different. But yeah, so this is what I wanted to share in this video. And my comment section's always open. I leave my email in the descriptions some of the time, and so you're always welcome to reach out for support and encouragement. And I'm gonna try, like I said, to upload a little more frequently. And if there's anything as well that you are interested in knowing more about, you're always welcome to leave a comment, and I will try to cover that in a video or make a video completely about it. So with that, I'm going to wrap things up here, and I just want to let all of you know that if you're in your addiction, or if you're in the process of quitting right now, to keep pushing through and to hang in there. And if you don't believe in God, that's okay. If you do, he will carry you just like he carried me. And if he doesn't, if you don't believe, then I respect that, and I will do everything that I can in my power and with everything that I've learned to continue to make these videos and continue to encourage and uplift you, and shine a light into this darkness that is kratom addiction. So thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video.